He was born the eldest son of the prestigious Gadu family. Yet, the sword essential to any swordsman never manifested for him. Whispers followed him, pitying his family for having a defective product who could not even use magic. The weight of this failure was immense. All he ever truly wanted was to be acknowledged. Instead, his plea was met with a fist. His own father struck him down, roaring that he was an incompetent fool and the shame of the Gadu family. He collapsed, understanding that no matter how much he tried to raise his voice, the beatings never stopped. In this place, he realized nobody would ever acknowledge him. He could only watch as his father turned and walked away. A memory surfaced of a gentler voice. His mother, resting, had called his name Toma. She had told him he was a strong child. He remembered her earnest wish for him to know that he was her pride. But even as she spoke, a quiet thought echoed in his own mind. In reality, he was not strong at all. The memory ended with him kneeling beside her still form, now covered by a white sheet. He begged for her to forgive the son who was born a failure. And so, Gadu Toma spent years in the dojo, lost in the same repetitive motion. Swing the sword up, then swing it straight down. He wondered how long he had been doing it, finding a strange peace in the endless practice. This solitary existence was his reality. Within the Gadu family, no meals were ever prepared for failures. When it was time to eat, he was given only Hyogen, traditional food pills. His training is interrupted by a sharp voice. "Hey, you failure." The insult barely registers. He reflects that at first, he cried when he had to eat those pills. Now, he doesn't even feel the taste. He is startled by a familiar, condescending voice. It is his younger brother, Gadu Tuji, flanked by two companions. Tuji demands to know who gave Toma permission to use the training ground. Toma can only stare, shocked, as he utters his brother's name. Without warning, Tuji strikes him across the face, shouting that he should be addressed as Master Tuji. The force of the blow sends Toma staggering backward. The blow sends him sprawling to the ground. Tuji mockingly asks if he only hit him slightly, while one of his companions sneers, calling Toma a loser for being unable to handle even that. As he struggles to his knees, his thoughts turn inward. He laments how inconvenient it is to be unable to use magic, a power that resides in and strengthens every being. He understands that he possesses this magic, but for some unknown reason, it fails to circulate through his body. His internal reflection is shattered by Tuji's voice, who continues to mock his useless daily training. Tuji points out that only the bodies of babies lack the flow of magic until they mature, comparing Toma's current state to that of an infant. Toma's silence only fuels his brother's irritation. Tuji's expression hardens as he leans in, demanding to know if he is being ignored. His brother's rage erupts into a furious shout, questioning Toma's audacity. Toma flinches, bracing himself. The outburst does little to deter his grim train of thought. He possesses magic, yet his body cannot use it. This makes him an anomaly in the entire country. This grim conclusion solidifies into a terrifying certainty. As Tuji makes a simple, almost playful hand gesture, Toma recoils in absolute fear, convinced that he is the weakest person in the entire world. His reaction sends Tuji and his companions into roaring laughter, realizing he was genuinely scared by the simple feint. The laughter dies down, and Tuji approaches with a smirk. He offers a disingenuous apology for laughing and for his offensive words. He then tells Toma to wait, proposing to personally demonstrate just how skilled he truly is. He flinches, the word "no" escaping his lips as his mind is forced to confront the nature of his home, the land of the sun. His eyes widen in stark terror. In response, Tuji begins to lecture him, explaining that in this land, there exist people called swordsmen. Each one possesses a unique power and a weapon specific to them. He urges Toma to look closely, declaring that his own power, the burning Yang tiger, is the only one that truly matters. He brandishes his blade with a wild grin, proclaiming that this power manifests as a life sword. With a crazed look, he proudly presents his own weapon, naming it Yuko. His explanation finished, he adds that his sword burns anything it cuts before turning the challenge back to his brother, demanding that Toma draw his own life sword. Toma can only stand frozen in fear as Tuji smirks. Seeing his brothers terrified in action, Tuji's mockery intensifies. He laughs, tauntingly asking if Toma even has a life sword, a question that sends his companions into fits of laughter. The jeers fade as Toma's thoughts turn inward to a lifetime of failure. He recalls that no matter how much he wished for this power, he could never attain it. The Imperial King provides opportunities to awaken one's life sword at the ages of 3, 5, and 7. But for him, each attempt was fruitless. This sacred rite is known as the Royal Election of Blessing, a grand ceremony presided over by the king himself within a hallowed hall. While the ritual is open to anyone living in the land of the sun, the manifestation of a life sword is deeply connected to one's bloodline. As a result, it is far more common for the children of established swordsman families to successfully awaken their blades. His own family is a prime example of such a lineage, one of the very best. He thinks of his father, Gadu Tujin, the head of the Gada family and one of the 7 great heavenly saints, a rank distinguished by the wearing of a purple robe. Given this prestigious heritage, expectations for him were absolute. As he knelt before the Imperial King, no one ever doubted that he would manifest his own life sword. But that expectation was met only with bitter disappointment. He remembered that day, kneeling alongside the other children of his generation, his head pressed to the floor in reverence. The air in the ceremonial hall was thick with anticipation, a heavy silence hanging over the proceedings. But as the ritual concluded, a stark reality set in. Around him, other children rose, their hands gripping the shining hilts of newly manifested life swords. He remained on his knees, empty-handed, his eyes wide with the dawning horror that his own sword had not appeared as his father, Tu-Jin, loomed over him. His father's face twisted into a mask of profound disappointment and fury. The words echoed in the hall, a final judgment, did not manifest. The memory faded, but the shame remained, now stoked by Tuji's relentless mockery. Tuji sneered, asking how it felt for such a prestigious family, the Gadu, protectors of the imperial line, to have an incompetent failure born into their ranks. Toma could only listen, his head bowed. He finally looked up, his voice low but firm, stating that he never asked to be born into this family. Tuji just laughed, agreeing with a sharp, "Ah, right?" and adding that he couldn't help but feel embarrassed for him. His cruelty then found a new target. Tuji's grin widened as he brought up Toma's mother, claiming she was incompetent just like him. He posited that she had a frail body from the start, which is why Toma was the same. Toma's hand tightened on his wooden sword. He pressed the attack, his voice rising to a gleeful shout, declaring it obvious that the offspring of a failure is also a failure. The insult struck home, and a raw fury erupted in Toma's eyes. "Don't you dare," he began to snarl. Before the words could fully form, he lunged, swinging his wooden sword with all his might. "Speak ill about my mother," he roared. Tuji, unimpressed, effortlessly parried the blow with his own blade, casually asking why Toma was getting so heated over what he claimed was simply the truth. He leaned in, his voice dripping with venomous glee, adding one final, cruel detail. According to his father, he claimed the only good thing about Toma's mother was her face. He continued his assault with a cruel smirk, his blade flashing as Toma screamed, overwhelmed by the attack and the verbal barbs. His taunts cut deeper than his blade. He reminded Toma that it had been 3 years since his training began, 3 years of swinging a sword every single day without a break. Tears of despair welled in Toma's eyes as Tuji delivered the final, crushing blow to his spirit. At the end of the day, all of that hard work had been for nothing. Elsewhere, Gadu Tugin's hand tightened on a wooden pillar, the wood groaning under the pressure. He reflected on the heavy burden of being the head of the family, a task that was far from easy. More than anything, he knew he needed to choose a proper partner, so he wouldn't end up like his own father. The fight was over. Toma knelt in the dirt, his sword broken, whispering that all he ever wanted was to be acknowledged. But Tuji offered no comfort, coldly informing him that a lifetime of his practice wasn't even equal to a single day's worth of his own. As the dust settled on their conflict, a new day dawned elsewhere. The time had finally arrived. The day of sacrifice to offer to Kyokuma Island was here. Within a stately room, Gadu Tujin reviewed a document, his expression grim. He mused that he was not a supporter of exile, crushing the paper in his fist. He had wanted to kill the failure with his own hands, but doing so would have tied scandals to his name. Now, however, he felt his luck had finally turned. This sentiment was shared by Gadu Tuji, whose face twisted into a manic grin. He realized that this was his chance to accomplish his task and simultaneously get rid of the incompetent fool. He believed that if he could accomplish this, the Gadu family's fame would rise. A dark, ambitious smile spread across his face as he considered that with his success, even that plan might be set in motion. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Gadu Toma stood outside, contemplating 3 small black spheres in his palm. His thoughts were interrupted when a voice from behind addressed him by his full name. He turned, surprised, to see 3 imposing figures in armor and wide hats. He recognized them as the Imperial swordsmen and asked if they needed anything from him. The lead swordsman, his eyes shadowed by the brim of his hat, stated their purpose plainly: "We'll be arresting you." Before Toma could process the declaration, the swordsman lunged, seizing him. He cried out in confusion, demanding to know what they were doing, but was harshly told to keep his mouth shut. He was dragged through the grounds, his mind racing as he saw the assembled officials. A horrifying realization dawned on him. Today was the day of the sacrifice. He recalled hearing that the Gadu family's first son was chosen. His dawning horror was met with brute force as he was shoved to the ground at the base of a long staircase leading to a grand hall. From a throne at the top of the stairs, a new figure, the ruler of the land of the sun, identified him as the sacrifice. Toma's eyes widened in shock. He saw the imperial king seated in the distance, and then his gaze fell upon another person approaching. He couldn't believe who it was. The approaching man stepped into view, revealing himself to be Gadu Tujin. Held firmly on the ground, Toma stared up in utter disbelief and cried out, "Father!" He stands before the imperial king, who asks if he's truly fine with this decision. Unflinching, Gadu Tujin presents his son, Toma, as a foolish but necessary offering. As Toma whispers his father's name in disbelief, Tujin forcefully presses the young man's head to the floor, commanding him to be silent. He then addresses the king with conviction, declaring that the Gadu family are faithful servants and that the blood of mere prisoners is no longer sufficient. Tujin claims it is his personal responsibility to take on this role, and because he possesses noble blood, he has resolved to sacrifice his own son for the greater purpose. The imperial king considers this, remarking that the ritual was originally meant to appease vengeful spirits, which is why fresh blood is required. On the floor, the reality of the situation crashes down on Toma. He realizes with horror that they are truly going to sacrifice him, unable to comprehend what his father is saying. Meanwhile, the ruler of the sun contemplates the matter. He acknowledges that while he dislikes assigning such a grim role to his loyal subjects, it is an undeniable fact that the time between disasters has been shortening at an alarming rate. His decision made, the ruler rises and makes his proclamation. The sacrifice this time will be the son of the Gadu family. He commands his attendants to begin the preparations, and they bow in immediate obedience. Panic grips Toma. He struggles against his restraints, his words muffled by a gag as he tries to protest that this is no joke. His eyes widen in sheer terror as he realizes his pleas are useless. An imperial swordsman approaches the restrained Toma, holding a ritual tool with a glowing, circular brand. Without hesitation, he presses the searing metal against Toma's chest, marking him for the sacrifice as the young man convulses in agony. The ruler of the sun remarks to Tu Jin that since Toma is of the Gado family, he must also be a distant relative of the Hiryu family, making him an even better sacrifice. He commends Tu Jin for his firm resolve. Tu Jin accepts the praise with a grimace, exhaling sharply. As Toma lies broken on the floor, two swordsmen stand over him. One callously remarks that this is a fitting end for a failure, noting that the Gado family has now regained its reputation while simultaneously getting rid of its incompetent offspring. He overhears their words, and a single tear traces a path from his eye. The devastating truth settles in. To his family and the kingdom, his life is nothing more than a sideshow. He felt his consciousness fade, the last image flashing through his mind being that of his father, a stern profile, then a distant figure walking away as the word echoed in the darkness. Then, his eyes fluttered open to an unfamiliar, hazy sky. Disoriented, he struggled to comprehend his new surroundings, a wave of confusion washing over him as he questioned where he was. He found himself sprawled on a desolate, sandy shore. Beside him rested a colossal, cracked skull, a silent testament to the grim nature of this place. The shock of the scene sent a jolt through him, and he sat up abruptly. He clutched his head, trying to piece together how he had gotten here and what exactly his father had done. As he grappled with his fractured memories, his gaze fell upon the fresh brand on his chest. He now understood its terrible meaning. It was the symbol of decline, the undeniable proof of being a sacrifice. The weight of this truth settled upon him, his expression shifting from confusion to a dawning, horrified comprehension. He lifted his head, his eyes finally taking in the full scope of his prison. Before him, rising from the sea, stood a jagged, menacing landmass, Kyokuma Island. Long ago, the first emperor of the Haino Kuni, the Sun Country, founded the nation by subjugating a powerful demon. However, that demon became a vengeful spirit, bringing disaster upon the land. To appease its anger, a ritual was established. Once every 10 years, a sacrifice is offered on the dreaded island where the demon was sealed. The symbol of that ritual is now branded upon Toma's chest. He understands now. This is Kyokuma Island. He has been thrown away. He clung to a desperate hope, a single thought repeating in his mind. No matter how terribly he was treated, his family would never truly abandon him. But the realization began to dawn, and a choked sound of anguish escaped his lips. His denial shattered, erupting into a raw, guttural scream that tore through the silence. He collapsed to his knees, still screaming, because he knew if he stopped believing in his family, his heart would not be able to take it. His scream twisted into a raw wail of utter despair, tears streaming down his face as the full weight of his abandonment crushed him. His mind raced with agonizing questions. Was it arrogant to wish for someone to accept him? Was it wrong to seek a place where he belonged? He wondered if anyone would have acknowledged him, if only he had been born into a normal family, with a normal body. He could only weep, whispering that he didn't understand. As he lay broken on the shore, the heavy footfalls of monstrous beings approached. His sorrow was cut short as he looked up. From the cliffs above, a horde of grotesque, demonic creatures descended, their eyes fixed upon him. He let out a hollow, broken laugh. His will was gone. He no longer knew what to do, feeling he had nothing left to give. As the monstrous demons swarmed him, their roars filling the air, his despair gave way to a profound weariness. He had had enough. He was tired. He closed his eyes, ready to let it all end. His final thoughts drifted to his mother, resolving that this was where his life would conclude. The thought of her brought back a painful memory, a time when he wept by her side as she lay ill. His mother, tears streaming down her face, had repeatedly apologized, blaming herself for his suffering. That memory of her sorrow jolted him back to the present. As a demon's claws sliced through the air where he'd just been, his eyes flew open with a new intensity. He had dodged the fatal blow. Scrambling on the sand, his mind reeled from the near miss. The horde continued its advance, but a new thought pierced through his fear. He could not die here. He remembered how his mother had always protected him, how she had always apologized for giving him a body like this. A surge of defiance coursed through him. He rejected her apology, realizing she had done nothing wrong. His hands tightened around a piece of driftwood, his knuckles white. He was no longer the boy ready to die. He was a son determined to survive until the very end. He rose to his feet, his gaze fixed on the approaching monsters. He would survive to prove his mother's worth, to make her proud. He would not let these nuisances stand in his way, roaring at them to stop. With a final, guttural scream, he charged forward. His makeshift weapon became an instrument of destruction, tearing through the demonic flesh with impossible force. He fights with the fury of a cornered animal, roaring as he swings a makeshift club against the monstrous demons. His attacks are wild, desperate, and fueled by a raw will to survive, tearing into the flesh of his assailants. But for every demon he strikes down, more take its place. The horde swarms him, their weight and numbers overwhelming his frenzied assault. As he is pulled to the ground, his thoughts drift to his mother, a desperate, unfinished plea forming in his mind. He is completely engulfed, a mass of claws and teeth descending upon him from all sides. Darkness threatens to consume him. Yet, from within the crushing pile of bodies, his eyes burn with defiance. He grips the ground, his resolve hardening into a single, powerful thought. He will not die. His declaration of will echoes into the ether, attracting unforeseen attention. A figure descends from above, laughing softly. This newcomer, an elderly man in ornate robes, observes the scene with amusement, remarking on the boy's incredible life force. The man's gaze fixes upon Toma, who can only stare back from beneath the weight of the demons. An elegant hand reaches out, poised as if to intervene. In an instant, a colossal, clawed appendage made of pure force slams down, scattering the demons with overwhelming power. The robed man is the source of the attack. With casual grace, he unleashes a wave of destruction that vaporizes the creatures, clearing the area around Toma in a flash. He then turns his attention to the boy, calmly considering his next move. He stands over Toma's now still form, which lies battered on the ground. The man acknowledges that his intervention was helpful, but now he is left with a dilemma. He quietly wonders to himself what he should do with the boy he has just saved. The mysterious elder hovers in the air, gazing down at a peculiar, crystalline landmass surrounded by churning water. He strokes his chin thoughtfully, questioning the nature of this strange island. His senses detect an incredibly old and powerful barrier erected around the island, preventing intrusion. He discerns that its strength lies in its simplicity, designed to permit passage only to those of a specific lineage. Though he wishes to investigate it further, he notes that it doesn't appear to be sealing anything in. His attention is then drawn to the island's inhabitants, a formidable collection of monstrous creatures. He surmises that investigating the barrier while simultaneously dealing with such powerful opponents will not be an easy task. From his elevated position, he observes a vast horde of these demons gathered on the shore below. His gaze then settles on a lone young man, Gadu Toma, who is surrounded by the beasts and has suffered a grievous wound to his chest. The elder watches the scene unfold with a curious, almost amused expression. From Toma's position, a tremendous burst of life force erupts, blasting outwards in a powerful shockwave. The elder looks on with keen interest as the wounded young man remains standing in the aftermath. Sometime later, Toma awakens with a start, his eyes wide with confusion. He finds himself in a cave, where the mysterious elder asks if he is awake and how his body feels. The memory of the attack rushes back, and he gasps in realization. He immediately bows deeply, thanking the old master for saving him. The elder waves his hand dismissively, telling him there's no need for such formality, as he just happened to find him by chance. Toma then asks about the monsters that had attacked him. With a startlingly casual expression, the elder informs him that he completely obliterated them, leaving not a single trace. Toma stares back, utterly stunned by the claim. He looks down his own chest and realizes with disbelief that not only have his wounds healed, but the brand that was there has also disappeared. The elder remarks that it has been a while since he performed healing magic, but he is clearly still quite active. Toma can only sit in stunned silence. He stared into the distance, his mind reeling with the revelation. He had faced that entire horde. Alone? He recalled the strength classifications of the Land of the Sun. 6 ranks for both swordsmen and demons. A single Daro was merely white rank, but a swarm of them was a threat on par with blue rank. The sheer scale of the danger he had overcome was difficult to grasp. His thoughts were interrupted by the old man, who mused aloud. To reach Gokumajima, one needed strength of at least the purple rank. The very fact that Toma was here suggested considerable power, yet his aura was so faint it was barely perceptible. The elder then posed a direct question, wondering if Toma was the demigod he had heard of. The boy could only respond with confusion. The elder, introducing himself as the demigod Tenrin, explained the term. A demigod, he said, is a human who has ascended 1 foot into the realm of the gods. Because they seclude themselves from the mortal world, their existence is rare. Toma, stunned, couldn't believe a demigod had helped him. Tenrin chuckled, dismissing the formality and adding that demigods are just a gathering of eccentrics. Setting the topic of demigods aside, Tenrin then asked what Toma was doing on such an island. The boy began to answer, intending to keep his story concise. However, he found himself recounting his entire life, explaining all the events that had brought him to this desolate place. Overwhelmed by the weight of his own story, he broke down, covering his face and apologizing through his tears. Tenrin calmly accepted his apology. He now understood. The brand he had removed was a dual-purpose technique, a tracking spell to monitor Toma's life and location, combined with a fatal strike spell. It was designed to ensure the boy could not survive and would certainly be killed. He explained that he had completely obliterated the technique when he healed Toma, musing that it was a messed-up story. He wondered aloud if the ones who cast the spell now believed Toma was dead. With that settled, he posed a simple question to the boy. So, what will you do now? The demigod offered to take him back to his hometown if he wished. But as Toma considered it, images of his family flashed through his mind. He knew that if he returned, they would likely treat him even worse than before. He concluded that there was no place for him there anymore. Toma replied with despair, stating that with a body incapable of using magic, his destination was irrelevant. Tenrin then moved closer, placing a gentle hand on the boy's head. He clarified his question, stating he wasn't asking about a place, but about a desire. I'm asking what you want to do. The question struck a chord. Looking up with newfound resolve, Toma gave his answer, simple and profound. Yes, I want to live. He clarified his desire, stating that he wants to live in a way that would make his mother proud. The demigod listened, a faint, knowing smile touching his lips as he considered the boy's resolve. The man then asked for his name. He replied that he was Godo Toma. As he spoke, a strange thought occurred to him. The demigod's voice sounded like his mother praising him. His expression shifted into a wide, eager grin. After a brief, thoughtful pause, he addressed the boy by name and extended a hand in a grand gesture. Well then, Toma, he declared, become my disciple. The offer left Toma stunned and wide-eyed. The mysterious savior reveals himself to be a demigod, asking Toma if he is his disciple. With a thoughtful expression, he explains that his own lifespan is drawing to a close, a revelation that shocks the young man. He clarifies that he was originally human, and that while all things must end, he was born with a resentment for his own mortality. This feeling drove him to abandon the vulgar world and master a path that reached into the domain of the gods. To confirm this new understanding, he decided to travel and observe the world he had lived in before his inevitable death. In his travels, he witnessed a world of vibrant life where people, though poor, cherished their time together. But it was not only that. He also saw a world steeped in vulgarity and lust. He asks Toma how he could possibly sever his connection to such a beautiful world, realizing he had no proof of his existence left. With a determined grin, he clenches his fist and declares that he has spent his life honing the Tenrin Daikin for this very purpose. He explains that the Tenrin Daikin is the very proof of his life. By passing on this fist, this legacy, he believes he can preserve his connection to the world. He then asks Toma to accept it. Toma expresses his doubt, stating that his body is flawed and cannot handle magic. The demigod, Tenrin, places a reassuring hand on the boy's head, telling him not to worry. He smiles, saying his magic will somehow manage. His expression hardens. He clarifies that while he can indeed heal Toma's body, the process will be accompanied by unimaginable pain. He then places his hand upon Toma's chest. A concept is introduced, the Tenbu Tai, or heavenly martial body. This is described as a body perfectly suited for the martial arts. In contrast, there is the Timitai, the heavenly demonic body. This form possesses a rich flow of magic, enabling it to handle powerful spells. Tenrin declares that Toma's body is not only a Timitai, a body suited for magic, but also a Tenbu Tai, a body suited for martial arts. The revelation stuns Toma, who can only stammer in disbelief. He elaborates on this surprising fact, explaining that the Tenbu Tai is an acquired trait. From a very young age, Toma had efficiently trained and nourished his body, resulting in his current physique. The boy listens, beginning to understand. With a knowing grin, the demigod reveals his theory. Toma's Timitai is incomplete. The word hangs in the air, leaving Toma to question its meaning with a worried expression. To explain, he details the fundamental workings of a magic user's body. Magical power originates from the heart and is distributed throughout the body via a network of channels known as magic veins. This power then permeates the muscles and cells, allowing for the manifestation of incredible strength. He continues, pointing out a critical vulnerability. In infancy, these magic veins are too fragile to handle the immense flow of magical power. This inherent danger is why so few Timitai exist. Tenrin then reveals this is his own unique circumstance, and that he has somehow managed to survive despite it. The demigod then pinpoints the specific flaw in Toma's body. His magic veins are abnormally narrow and hard. This constriction prevents the proper flow of magical energy. He calls it a grim stroke of luck, as his very defect is what prevented Toma from being destroyed by his own power. A memory of his mother surfaces in his mind. She looks upon him with a gentle, sorrowful expression, admitting that she believes she noticed the truth. She, too, had an incomplete Timitai, and her own short life was a testament to her body's inability to fully adapt. Tenrin's voice brings him back to the present, detailing the consequences of this condition. Whenever Toma attempts to use magic, the accelerated flow has nowhere to go, forcing him to violently ram it against his constricted magic veins to pry them open. The boy silently recalls the immense pain of this process. He looks down, his voice heavy with the weight of this new understanding, and asks the critical question, can his body be healed? Tenrin affirms that it is possible, but cautions that it will not be a simple matter. His expression hardens as he lays out the brutal treatment plan. They will repeatedly force an accelerated torrent of magic through Toma's body, intentionally damaging the magic veins. Tenrin will then use his own healing arts to repair them. This cycle of destruction and regeneration will continue until the veins are forged anew, stronger than before. He leaned forward, his gaze intense, laying out the stark reality of the choice before the boy. To forcibly pry open his magic veins would be agonizing, and he made it clear that the pain itself could very well be fatal. With the terms laid bare, he posed a question, so what will you do? Toma looked up, his expression a mixture of fear and desperation. He understood this was necessary to wield magic, but the possibility of death made him recoil. His head dropped, his voice barely a whisper as he began to object, but, with a look of sheer desperation, Gadu Toma makes a plea, his voice trembling as he begs for help. The mysterious savior looks down at him, questioning if he is truly certain. He reminds Toma that he was mocked as useless and abandoned on this island, all because of his weakness. Prostrate on the ground, Toma confirms this is why he needs it, pleading for power. The savior considers this for a moment, then agrees. As he consents, Toma lunges forward with frantic energy. The savior simply points a finger at the boy, declaring that he will grant his wish. Toma's eyes widen in shock at the sudden turn of events. He notes that Toma is already on the verge of losing consciousness, warning him that if his focus wavers for even an instant, he will die. Toma's body begins to tremble violently as thick, dark tendrils of energy envelop him. With a sharp command to die, the savior unleashes the full force of the ritual. Toma is thrown back, screaming in unimaginable agony as his body contorts. Blood streams from his eyes and mouth, his face a mask of pure torment. Much to the savior's surprise, he watches in disbelief, realizing the magic is activating and strengthening Toma's muscles to an incredible degree, akin to a heavenly martial body. He understands that at this rate, Toma's own body will crush him from the inside out and yells for him to relax his muscles. But the boy can only groan in pain. Toma endures a level of pain he has never experienced, yet his desire for power remains. He remembers his mother's words, telling him to live with his chest held high, and clings to that thought. The savior, seeing this immense willpower, realizes with astonishment that Toma is consciously fighting to stay aware through the agony. A brilliant light erupts from his back, forming ethereal, insect-like wings. The savior looks on, stunned, exclaiming at the boy's tremendous life force. The ordeal finally subsides. The savior sits on the ground, holding the limp, unconscious form of Toma in his arms. He lets out a breath of relief, remarking that somehow, against all odds, it seems to have worked. He has survived. Though his body was nearly torn apart, Toma endured, grasping life with everything he had. A small, glowing orb of light now emanates from his chest, a sign of the power he nearly died to obtain. The mysterious savior gazes down at the unconscious young man, a weary but impressed expression on his face. He mutters to himself that it was quite an ordeal, a truly remarkable feat. A sharp pain suddenly seizes him, and he clutches at his chest, his face twisting in agony. He acknowledges that he may have pushed himself too far. Despite his own condition, his thoughts turn to the boy. He resolves to teach Toma how to handle this newfound magical power, but a sense of urgency clouds his thoughts. He reflects that there are only 5 years left, a period of time that feels far too short for what must be done. 5 years after becoming a disciple, a memory surfaces. A monstrous, horned Oni charges across a ravaged landscape, its immense power shattering the very ground it treads upon. Facing this beast is a 15-year-old Toma. With fists clenched and a look of intense focus, he stands his ground against the towering, three-eyed Oni. He lunges forward, his fist connecting squarely with the demon's jaw. The Oni roars in a mixture of pain and fury at the unexpected force of the blow. Without pause, he follows up with a devastating strike, known as Haten. The attack slams into the Oni's chest, creating a powerful shockwave that sends the creature reeling backward. The technique, Hauten, proves overwhelming. The Oni's entire upper body disintegrates into dust, its final, guttural sound silenced forever as Toma watches the aftermath. The memory fades, returning him to the present. Toma catches his breath, a bead of sweat on his brow, as he wonders to himself if that performance was enough to pass. He looks up, calling out to his master. The demigod, Tenrin, descends from the sky, casually cleaning his ear. He remarks that Toma seems to understand it was a bare minimum pass. Tenrin lands before him, stating that while Toma has certainly mastered the fundamentals of the Hatenken style in the last 5 years, he is still naive. Toma quietly agrees, acknowledging that he is still far from his master's level. His master smirks, stroking his chin. He tells Toma that he is far too earnest, letting the comment hang in the air for a moment. He then declares that the next test will be the final one. The words strike Toma, whose eyes widen in disbelief and shock. He protests, asking his master to wait. He feels he is still inexperienced and questions why he must be the last one. Tenrin turns to him with a knowing smile, agreeing that Toma is, indeed, still unpolished. In response, his master explains that he has already taught him everything he can, All that remains is for Toma himself to hone his skills. Toma listens intently, his gaze lowered, his tone then shifts, his expression growing serious as he holds up a hand. It is time. As he speaks, his form begins to dissolve into particles of light. He tells Toma not to make such a sad face, reminding him of his earlier warning that their time together was short. He urges his student to worry about himself instead. Toma can only stare in shock, calling out for his master. The fading master then points toward a jagged mountain range in the distance, declaring that the final trial is to reach the center of Kaiokuma Island. He elaborates on the danger, explaining that the demons on the island grow stronger the closer one gets to the center, where powerful, purple-ranked demons reside. Tenrin asks if Toma understands the difficulty of this trial. Toma affirms that he does. His master then reveals that upon reaching his destination, Toma will find the power he needs to protect his mother. Tenrin then adds a cryptic remark, stating that there is likely something there that he himself seeks. Toma looks up, confused, wondering what his master could possibly want. His master then reveals something startling. That land is waiting for Toma. He explains that while he didn't understand the purpose of the island's barrier at first, spending time there with Toma brought clarity. Toma is stunned by the revelation. As his form grows ever more transparent, Tenrin gives his final instructions. Once Toma passes the trial, he will understand everything. After that, he is free to do as he pleases. Toma questions this, and his master confirms it with a gentle smile. With his last moments, Tenrin offers a final piece of wisdom, telling Toma that confronting one's own desires is what it truly means to live. With that, he vanishes completely. He clenched his fist, his expression hardening with resolve. He told his master to hold his head high, vowing that he would survive this trial with every fiber of his being. Tenrin simply replied that he understood. His master's face broke into a wide, heartfelt grin. He gave a deep sound of affirmation, expressing his wish to spend their final moments together as master and student. As his form completely vanished into particles of light, his final words echoed from the empty sky. He had been happy. Toma stood alone on the shore, gazing at the spot where his master had just been. He watched the last motes of light dissipate, his master's parting words replaying in his mind. Tenrin had said he was happy, but Toma began to wonder what, if anything, he had ever been able to give his master in return. The thought triggered a flood of memories. He recalled his younger self, surrounded by smiling faces, with Tenrin always near. It was his master who had given him so much. He remembered the simple, joyful moments, his master ruffling his hair with a wide grin. Tenrin had given him a period of happiness more profound than he could have ever imagined. The weight of these memories brought him back to the present. Tears streamed down his face as he whispered his master's title into the empty air. Overwhelmed with gratitude and sorrow, he felt his knees on the wet sand, pressing his forehead to the ground in a deep bow. He offered his heartfelt thanks for everything. The master's journey begins amidst a rugged, forested landscape. 2 years later, that journey is well underway. Gadu Toma, now more seasoned, moves with incredible speed through the wilderness. He moves with newfound power, confronting a violet-ranked demon, a massive, flame-wreathed great wolf, and deftly evades its initial lunge. With a focused shout of Houghton, he channels his energy into a single devastating blow that strikes the beast head-on, causing it to collapse. The creature disintegrates, but his senses are already alert to the next threat. He leaps through the trees, descending upon another group of foes. He lands before a new group of monsters, the violet-ranked demons, known as the Banban. Undaunted, Toma charges forward to meet them. Without hesitation, he closes the distance in an instant, his fist shattering the first demon he reaches. He then leaps high into the air, narrowly avoiding the lashing tongue of a great toad, another violet-ranked demon, before positioning himself to strike the downed creature. Landing deftly, he evades a crushing blow from a massive, tusked demon. The powerful strike shatters the ground where he just stood as he leaps away to counter. In response, he unleashes a more powerful technique, Ryuten Heigun. A concentrated beam of energy erupts from his fist, striking the tusked demon and engulfing it in a brilliant explosion. He unleashed another powerful technique, the sky-rending kick. The force of the blow was immense, obliterating one demon's eye and sending a shockwave that stunned a nearby frog-like creature, leaving it and another observer wide-eyed in disbelief. But the victory brought no relief. As the bodies of the slain, snake-like demons began to dissolve around him, his breath caught in his throat. His eyes widened in shock, fixed on something utterly unexpected. On the battlefield of Kaiokuma Island, a colossal skeletal demon, a great ogre, unleashes a devastating wave of power, its flaming skull roaring as it obliterates the ground before it. In the face of this overwhelming force, Gadu Toma lets out a defiant cry, his body taut with energy as he narrowly evades the creature's bony arm. He stands firm, a lone figure against the demon's immense, glowing eyes, his own fist beginning to radiate a brilliant light. The words of his master, Tenrin, echo in his mind. The master explains that all things in creation have an end, and that the purpose of a blade, or a fist, is to forcibly guide them to it. With this understanding, Toma roars, channeling all his power into a single point. He declares his intent to pierce the very end point of his foe, unleashing the essence of his master's teaching. His attack, the sky-breaking fist, surges forward with blinding speed and unstoppable force. The impact is absolute. The great ogre's skull and entire upper torso are instantly and completely annihilated, disintegrating into nothingness under the power of the blow. Panting from the exertion, Toma finds himself standing before a colossal, crystalline mountain. He realizes with awe that he has finally reached the center of Kyokuma Island. He approaches a dark, towering archway, recalling his master's words that what he seeks is here. From the oppressive darkness beyond the gate, he senses an overwhelmingly powerful presence and wonders what, exactly, is waiting for him. God Toma arrives before a colossal, dark archway, recognizing it as the center of Kyokuma Island. He recalls his master mentioning a barrier in this place, and, with a determined look, steps forward, his foot causing ripples to spread across the ground as he prepares to enter. As he crosses the threshold, a pair of ancient, piercing eyes flash open in the darkness. A deep voice resonates, remarking that it has been a very long time. The unexpected voice sends a jolt through him. Toma's expression shifts to one of pure shock, his eyes wide as he tries to comprehend the sudden presence. Before he can react, an unseen force violently repels him, launching him backward through the air. He cries out in pain and confusion, wondering what is happening as he is thrown from the entrance. He lands hard, skidding to a stop. Looking up, he sees a man standing atop a high pillar. The man states that by reaching this place and defeating the island's demons, Toma has earned the right to face his trial and must accept all that is to come. A menacing grin spreads across the man's face as he leans forward, clearly relishing the confrontation to come. He then challenges Toma directly, demanding that the young man show him his power. Toma stares back, still stunned by the sudden turn of events. A moment of silence passes. The powerful man looks on with a slightly puzzled expression, as if something is not proceeding as he expected. Suddenly, Toma looks down at his own hands in alarm, noticing they are becoming transparent. The man on the pillar confirms his observation, stating that Toma has, in fact, already left this world, and now they are equals. The man elaborates, explaining that Toma is currently in a spiritual state. He reveals that he used his own barrier to temporarily separate Toma's spirit from his physical body. As he speaks, Toma's unconscious form is shown lying at the entrance, while his spirit stands inside the trial grounds. He grinned, telling the boy not to concern himself with his descendants. Toma, stunned, could only stammer out the word descendant in disbelief. His grin fading, he questioned the boy's surprise, asking if he was of the Hiryu family. The trial master then demanded to know why Toma did not carry the king's sword, a weapon he should possess. Toma's thoughts raced to the ruler of the sun, remembering that the king's sword of the Hiryu family, the very lifeblood of the royalty, was in that man's possession. He knew it was impossible for him to have it. The trial master seemed to ponder this, musing about the trial and his descendant. He admitted he was unaware of what had transpired in the country, but decided he would simply have to find out for himself. With that, he lunged forward, his hair flying wildly as he brought a massive blade down upon the stunned Toma. As the blade descended, the trial master snarled a single word, a command to die. Toma could only watch in horror, his own spiritual weapon held defensively before him. The impact was immense. A blast of energy erupted from the point of contact, sending Toma flying backward through the air. He crashed against the ground, his eyes wide with shock and pain from the overwhelming force of the blow. But it wasn't just physical force. As he lay in the cratered earth, he felt a strange sensation, something flowing directly into his mind. The trial master paused, a look of realization on his face. He observed that the power had been properly inherited, deeming his descendant worthy. With a grim look, he declared that the trial would continue, leaving Toma to wonder what had just happened. He was sent tumbling through the air, the world spinning around him as he gasped from the force of the blow. The source of this overwhelming power was his ancestor, who stood poised, his technique on full display. As he stared up from the ground, the trial master noted with a grin that he seemed to be inheriting the techniques. The realization struck Toma with the force of another blow. He was absorbing his ancestor's skills. His ancestor praised his sharp eyes, musing that it would be interesting to raise the stakes. Toma now understood the process. With every injury he sustained, a torrent of knowledge flowed directly into his mind. He could anticipate the moves, yet he was still too slow to react, becoming stronger with each successive blow. The trial master then laid out the true stakes of the battle. If Toma were to be defeated, it would count as a loss for his own master. The weight of this responsibility settled on Toma. He knew he couldn't win by himself, but that was the one thing he could not permit. With a surge of defiance, his eyes blazing, he declared that he would not be underestimated and would not allow his master to be shamed. The trial master launches a powerful kick, which God Toma narrowly evades while simultaneously fending off attacks from other identical figures. The force of the mist below shatters the ground behind him. With a confident smirk, the trial master wonders aloud if Toma can truly predict his movements, which are based on inherited techniques. He poses a challenge, asking what Toma will do if that is the case. He continues his question, asking if Toma can react to this new assault as multiple copies of the master converge on the young warrior with swords drawn. As Toma braces himself, one of the copies smashes a fist into the ground, creating a powerful shockwave. While Toma is thrown off balance by the tremor, Another copy of the trial master raises a hand, causing jagged pillars of rock to erupt from the earth. The master watches the chaos with a look of detached curiosity. In a desperate burst of energy, Toma lunges forward, roaring the name of his technique, Koha. His fist, aimed directly at the master's face, causes the warrior's eyes to widen in genuine surprise. The surprise on the trial master's face instantly twists into a wide, manic grin, revealing sharp, predatory teeth. His eyes are wide with a crazed and feral excitement. The copy of the master that Toma struck shatters into crystalline fragments. The real trial master, standing at a distance, laughs heartily. He remarks that the outside world has become quite stimulating, leaving a bewildered Toma to question what just happened. He commends Toma, acknowledging that he has shown him something interesting. With a new, serious intensity in his eyes, the master declares that in return, he will now reveal his true power. Toma braces himself, his expression hardening with tension. The trial master looms over him, stating that his time for playing is over and the nature of their fight has changed. Toma realizes that defending is futile. Concluding that his only option is to strike before he is struck, he lets out a defiant roar and charges forward. The two warriors face each other, their resolve set. Toma prepares to unleash his supreme destructive heaven fist, while the trial master readies his 10,000 re-flash. The air crackles with anticipation for the imminent clash. He lunged forward, unleashing his ultimate technique, but was met with an overwhelming force. A blinding impact erupted at his chest, the sheer power of the blow shredding his garments and sending a shockwave through his entire body. The source of the devastation was the trial master, who stood with his fist still clenched. With a confident smirk, he casually asked how the blow felt, watching as the young warrior was thrown back, his body unable to withstand the attack. His strength gave out, and he collapsed his knees in the dust. The single thought echoed in his mind: I lost. The crushing realization settled in. Even after using the ultimate technique inherited from his master, he had been completely and utterly defeated. From his towering height, the trial master looked down upon the broken form of his student. Toma remained hunched over, motionless, the dust settling around him in the silence of his absolute defeat. The trial master stands over the fallen Toma, sword at the ready. He asks if the boy is awake, explaining that he had to get serious to draw out Toma's true potential. He muses on the time Toma must have spent training to reach his current level, concluding that a mere child should have no chance of winning. In response to the defeat, Toma looks at his arm in disbelief as the wound he sustained vanishes before his eyes. He is stunned, realizing he lost not just the fight, but to someone who has trained even more than he has. The trial master watches him, stating that it would be meaningless for Toma to die without passing on his techniques. For that purpose, a strong spirit is needed, and weaklings are unnecessary. Taking his words to heart, Toma gets to his feet and bows deeply. He apologizes for his rudeness and thanks the trial master for his guidance. The master seems pleased, saying it is good that he understands, and asks for his name. The young man introduces himself as Juda Shinma. The trial master reflects on how fiercely Toma fought, asking if the current Yoryu kingdom is a vassal state of the Tojokaku. Toma denies this. He explains that this is a memento from his master. The trial master smirks, commenting that Toma was blessed with a good master. He then reveals a surprising fact. In his entire life, he has never taken a disciple, as during the era of the Yoryu kingdom, there was no one who could inherit his techniques. Toma is stunned. The ancient warrior continues his explanation. The Yoryu kingdom was a nation unified by a single swing of the sword, and to continue ruling, power was necessary. He imposed a trial, the blood of the Yoryu. For the sake of the day, a child would appear who could inherit his techniques. He then asks if the Yoryu kingdom is still healthy. Toma confirms that the Yoryu family is currently ruling. The trial master seems satisfied, saying that if that's the case, then his meddling was not in vain. He reflects on this revelation, thinking that a master as excellent as this man must be happy to have a disciple. He states that he will continue to devote himself to training. The trial master looks at him, questioning. The young man boldly declares that to him, the trial master is already his master. He explains that while he may have no techniques to receive, the trial master has already passed something invaluable on to him. The ancient warrior is taken aback by this declaration. He stood his ground, his declaration hanging in the air. The trial master, taken aback, told him to wait. He pointed out that Toma had already reached this point by mastering his techniques, leaving nothing left for him to teach. The ancient warrior then asked, a hint of disbelief in his voice, if Toma truly considered himself his disciple. Before Toma could answer, the master grasped his hand, inspecting it closely. He noted that Toma had already perfected the disciple's stance. For a boy from the Yono country, he wielded a sword remarkably well, despite having no formal training in swordsmanship. Having acknowledged that Toma had overcome his trial, the master declared he would grant him one final reward. A brilliant light suddenly flared from his hand, stunning the young man. The light coalesced, forming a magnificent sword that materialized in his hands. The trial master presented it to Toma, calling it his imperial sword. The young man stared, utterly awestruck by the gift. He took the blade, overwhelmed, remarking that too many incredible things were happening at once. The master's expression hardened as he asked if Toma was refusing the gift. The young man stammered, unable to form a complete sentence. In a sudden, violent motion, the master slammed his hand down on Toma's head, forcing him to the ground. He growled that he shouldn't concern himself with such trivialities. He loomed over the boy, his gaze intense. He declared that this was a just reward for overcoming the trial, and that Toma had earned the right to receive the imperial sword. He then explained the stakes. If Toma did not accept the blade, its life force would simply fade away. He offered an alternative, suggesting that if the boy still refused, he would wield it himself, which would be a fitting end for the weapon. As Toma remained silent, the master suddenly produced 2 swords of his own, remarking that it had been a while. He seemed to find the situation peculiar as he readied his stance. Much to Toma's surprise, their standoff was interrupted by the arrival of Gado Tuji. He questioned why the imperial sword, the very lifeblood of the emperors, had appeared. He then commanded the trial master to stop wasting time and cut Toma down. He cried out, telling them to wait. But the trial master, his face a mask of fury, raised the imperial sword high. Gado Tuji watched with a vicious smile, urging them to fight to the death and goading the master to return the sword with a thrust if he didn't want it. In that same instant, a colossal gate of pure light erupted from the ground in a desolate wasteland. Its brilliant archway pulsed with power, and from within its blinding depths, a lone figure emerged. The figure was a young woman in ornate armor, now collapsed upon the unfamiliar ground. Her eyes were shut tight, her fist clenched in the dirt, her presence an utter mystery. 7 years have passed since his mother, the revered priestess, was offered as a sacrifice to Kayokuma Island. In that time, he has faced countless hardships, clashing blades with his formidable master in a relentless training regimen. Despite the grueling nature of the combat, he grits his teeth, a fierce declaration of his well-being echoing in the air. His resilience is born from an unusual training ground. The flow of time within this cavern is distorted. Years of relentless training have passed for him, while outside, not a single moment has elapsed. The master reveals the secret behind this accelerated growth. He explains that Toma can only endure such impossible training because they are not in the physical world, but within a barrier created by the master's own spiritual form. He questions if Toma's physical body can truly grow from this. He rises, undeterred, and the master questions if he believes the training to be pointless. Toma refutes this, and the master elaborates on his method. The spirit originates from a place of magic and is shaped by it. By tempering the spirit body, the physical body is also trained. The stronger the spirit becomes, the greater its vessel grows. A critical realization dawns on Toma. If a spirit body enters a physical form that exceeds its capacity, the body itself could perish. The master, startled by this insight, concedes that it is a possibility. As he considers this, his own form begins to waver. He gazes at his hand as it starts to disintegrate into particles of light, murmuring that his time is up. His entire body now dissolving, he addresses the stunned youth, telling him not to be concerned. The master reveals that he has already passed from the world. What stands before Toma is merely a divine thought, a consciousness that has lingered since before his death, and it is now fading. But his fading is not a tragedy. He explains that he is not simply vanishing, but departing with peace of mind, for he has found a true successor to inherit all that he is. He bowed his head, offering his thanks to the master. Looking up, his expression was a mixture of awe and confusion, still processing the immense power that had been passed to him. His mind reeling, he questioned why the master would bestow such a gift, his life's work, even his swordsmanship, upon someone like him. The master's gaze remained fixed and intense. The master simply spoke his name, Toma. He then began to explain his reasoning, noting that ever since they had met, Toma had always been self-deprecating. This wasn't just humility, the master asserted. It was a genuine habit of looking down on himself. With a sudden intensity, he commanded Toma to stop it, startling the young man. The words struck a chord. Toma understood that the master was right. The master continued, explaining that if Toma were to be defeated, his own legacy, the hegemon's fist, will become a disgrace to the master himself. The master then asked if he had been a good teacher, and Toma confirmed that he was. Seizing on this, the master questioned why he would then insult such a teacher by continuing to belittle himself. Toma was left speechless by the logic. With a burst of newfound resolve, Toma shouted his affirmation. A pleased smile spread across the master's face, who commended the determined look in his student's eyes. With his final words, the master expressed his pride in having a disciple like Toma at the very end. As his consciousness faded completely, Toma was left standing alone, his reflection staring back at him from a tall, monolithic mirror. Having just completed a powerful strike, God Toma looks up, his expression hardening with resolve. His focus is shattered as the ground begins to tremble violently beneath him, his eyes widening in alarm. The trembling intensifies into a full-blown collapse. A massive slab of rock erupts from the floor, sending Toma flying. He realizes with horror that the entire cavern is caving in. Thrown through the air by the explosion, he spots a large stone monument he was drawn towards. The inscription reads, "Blade and body as one." As the cavern crumbles around him, he feels a strange sensation, a pull from the monument, while desperately shouting for an exit. His eyes fixate on the words, a profound confusion washing over him as he murmurs them aloud. Blade, body as one. The world dissolves around him. Suddenly, he finds himself standing alone in a vast, empty expanse as rain falls. He looks at his hands, questioning what just happened and if he has returned to his own body. He realizes the rain is passing through him. This is merely his spirit. He wonders if he is now outside. His contemplation is cut short by a thunderous impact as a colossal, monstrous foot slams into the ground nearby. It belongs to a creature of impossible scale. Toma is dwarfed by the immense limb, feeling a dreadful, ominous presence wash over him. He senses that this being is like the culmination of all the world's evil. He looks up, his gaze tracing the monstrous form into the rain-swept sky. Before him stands the source of this overwhelming aura, the ultimate demon, the Kaiokama. The creature's full form is a nightmare spectacle, a towering behemoth of gnarled, dark matter. With a massive blade protruding from its core, it looms over the desolate landscape like a god of destruction. The colossal demon's presence is overwhelming. Before it, Toma is paralyzed by fear, his body trembling uncontrollably. He realizes with dread that the will to fight, the will to win, has completely abandoned him. A smaller, more agile demon, a vanguard for the larger beast, prepares to strike, while the archdemon itself issues a single, guttural command: die. But before the creature can act, a powerful, unseen force slams into it, sending it flying. The demon seems more surprised than hurt, remarking to itself that it had gotten rather carried away in its frenzy. The source of the attack is revealed: a towering, muscular man with a wild grin, his katana resting casually on his shoulder. He looks down at the cowering demon and declares that its time is over. Toma can only stare up at his unexpected savior, his face a mask of disbelief. A colossal, multi-armed demon unleashes a swirling vortex of dark energy. Facing it, a muscular warrior with long, spiky hair and a fierce beard plants his feet, his expression one of absolute resolve. He swings his curved blade with tremendous force, the steel arcing through the air to meet the demonic assault head-on. The impact creates a blinding flash and a chaotic explosion of power. From the epicenter of the clash, the warrior launches himself into the air, soaring above his monstrous foe. With his sword held high, he prepares to bring it down upon the roaring demon. The resulting blow unleashes a massive, hemispherical shockwave of dark energy that obliterates the surroundings. Miles away, God Toma is knocked to the ground, his eyes wide with disbelief as he feels the tremor. He wonders what could possibly be happening. He scrambles to his knees, questioning how he was suddenly moved. He recalls that just moments before, the person training him had started a fight with a mysterious demon. A realization strikes him with force. He knows this battle. His mind drifts to a memory of a woman explaining that anyone raised in the land of the sun would know this story. The warrior, in that same memory, admits that while he was vaguely aware of it, he had dismissed it as a mere fairy tale, never confirming its truth for himself. Returning to the present vision, the warrior's blade clashes against the demon's hide. Toma watches, his belief now absolute. He recognizes the single sword stroke, a technique said to be powerful enough to fell even the gods. The warrior raises his sword high, channeling all his power for a final strike. He is the first emperor of the land of the sun, and this is his ultimate technique, Yoryu to 10. It's over, he declares with finality. His blade descends in a single, clean slash, cleaving the massive demon vertically in two. The creature's monstrous form immediately begins to crumble and disintegrate into dust and flame. Toma finally understands. What he is witnessing is not just a fight, but a memory etched into the very land itself. He recalls the legend of the first emperor defeating a great demon, which became the vengeful spirit Kaiokama, sealed on this island. To appease its rage, a sacrifice was offered every 10 years. This memory, he realizes, is the emperor's final gift, a lesson in the technique known as katami ichinyo, body and sword as one. He processed the revelation, understanding that the ritual sacrifice to Kaiokama Island was originally a trial established by the first emperor to pass on his power. Over the long years, however, the divine will left in his master's body had twisted, becoming a curse. The truth of it all settled upon him with a sudden, shocking clarity. As the realization solidified, a strange energy began to emanate from his hands. He looked down in alarm, questioning if this meant his body was returning to its physical state. The energy flared, enveloping his entire form. He cried out to the first emperor as the power surged through him. His panic gave way to resolve. He declared that he would properly receive the first emperor's power with his own blade, the god Toma. The ancient warrior turned slightly, his own blade now in hand. He acknowledged the young man's resolve, stating simply that he had received it. In a single moment, the center of Kaiokama Island was reached. The central structure began to collapse. At the same time, in the land of the sun, a new star reading was made. Amidst the crumbling landscape, Toma drew his blade, feeling a shift in the world around him. He believed the time had come for the true king to descend. He was suddenly racked with agony, screaming as a demonic power surged uncontrollably through his entire body. He gasped, wondering at the source of this excruciating pain. The pain triggered a memory from when he was 10 years old. His master, the demigod Tenrin, was explaining the concept of forms. He told the young Toma that while magic is a great power flowing through the body, forms that would allow one to manifest it with greater efficiency. The boy asked how that differed from ordinary magic use. Tenrin suggested he experience it directly, making a complex hand sign and telling him to copy it. Toma tried, but his fingers trembled, unable to replicate the shape. Tenrin chuckled, explaining that just as one cannot wield a sword properly at first, the same applies to magic forms. He then demonstrated, explaining that by repeatedly practicing the movements, magic is born in the arms. The more power that flows into the form, the greater the resulting technique's strength becomes. Tenrin continued, stating that there are thousands of techniques, each with its own form, and the key is to master them one by one. He then offered to forcibly transmit the knowledge of the forms to Toma. The boy was taken aback by the idea of it being done forcibly, but Tenrin simply confirmed it. For a fleeting moment, a vision of a bloodied figure flashed through Tenrin's mind. He thought to himself, "That's it," before his expression softened back into a smile in the past, encouraging the young Toma to keep trying. Back in the present, Toma collapsed to his knees, panting. He looked at his hand, a realization dawning on him. He now understood what the first emperor had been enjoying. His master had taught him everything, even healing techniques, but he trailed off, a new, troubling thought taking hold. He felt the forms settling into his being, more deeply ingrained now than when he was just a spirit. By witnessing that memory, he understood that the inheritance of the Fushin Ikkyo technique was now complete. The realization brought back memories of his training. He recalled Tenrin explaining that the first emperor, in those memories, moved with far greater power than what Toma had faced. Tenrin admitted that he himself had been holding back considerably during their spars. He then thought of the first emperor's swordsmanship, the Kashin Ryu, a single strike meant to bring down a god. Toma acknowledged that even if he now possessed the same technique, he was still nowhere near his master's level, and his fist tightened at the thought. Both of his masters had appeared before him then, instructing that the power they had bestowed was all he would receive. From that point on, he was to focus solely on mastering what he had been given. Pulled from his reverie, he scanned the desolate, rocky landscape of the present. As he wondered about the strange state of the island, his eyes caught something on the ground. A low rumble echoed around him. The island itself seemed to be stirring. Looking down, he saw a clear trail of footprints pressed into the earth. Amidst a field of shattered rock, a warrior with a long ponytail observes the crumbling landscape, noting the palpable killing intent emanating from the demons. Below, Gadu Toma stands his ground as a massive, spinning wheel of dark energy hurtles toward him. Yet he seems to dismiss the immediate danger with a simple denial. The spinning projectile reveals a roaring, demonic face, the warrior's technique, Shuki Demon, Rindu. As it bears down, Toma looks up, his expression shifting to one of alarm as he realizes the attack is exactly as he anticipated. In response, both combatants spring into motion, leaping across the jagged spires of rock their conflict has carved into the terrain. His opponent smirks mid-air, confident in his overwhelming assault. He muses that such a reckless charge is futile. An ordinary weapon would surely be destroyed with ease. The demonic wheel continues its relentless advance. Toma, however, does not falter, bracing himself to meet the attack head-on. He grips his sword, his gaze hardening with determination. This, he declares, is the life sword of the First Lord, and its inherent power is that of royal authority. With a powerful shout, Toma swings his blade directly into the demonic face, proclaiming that it will absolutely not break. The wheel shatters on impact, its energy dissipating completely. His opponent's confidence evaporates, replaced by a look of sheer disbelief. He mutters that Toma's technique was plain, almost crude. He is thrown back by the force of the impact, the ground around him cracking under the residual power. He recognizes the technique, acknowledging that the First Lord's sword style, the Kojin Ryu, is simply too powerful. He concludes his thought with a stark realization. An ordinary life sword would have been incapable of withstanding that technique and would have shattered it to pieces. On his knees in the quiet aftermath of battle, Toma catches his breath. He realizes that controlling his magical power is far more difficult than he imagined, especially when attempting to master this sword technique. He examines the blade, recognizing it as the royal sword. Though he has heard the name, he knows nothing of its history. He now understands its true nature. Its power isn't merely being unbreakable, but possessing a life force of its own. This realization brings a heavy weight. He reflects that he never desired such a dreamlike power. Visions of those he once knew flicker in his mind, reinforcing his feeling that he is unworthy of such a gift. Despite his doubts, his expression hardens with resolve. He decides he will carry the proof of his master's lives forward and venture into this world. The sword's only necessary ability is that it cannot be broken. All else is superfluous. He stands alone amidst the towering trees. It should be a simple matter to fly away from this place. Yet a profound fear roots him to the spot. His senses suddenly alert him to an approaching presence. He thinks of a debt he owes his masters, of escaping this island. With his current strength, crossing the sea should be easy, but the thought of what lies beyond paralyzes him, robbing him of the courage to take the next step. In a flash, a figure bursts from the trees. A young woman with pointed ears and a shocked expression confronts him, her voice sharp as she asks if he is human. Toma is stunned into silence. She lunges forward, hand outstretched, aggressively demanding to know who he is. But her words are foreign, a language he cannot comprehend, leaving him utterly bewildered. On the turbulent seas near the land of the sun, a large galleon battles against crashing waves. Aboard the vessel, a young woman with pointed ears steadies herself, her expression grim. She identifies herself as Liz, an adventurer. She now finds herself on her knees before a tall, hooded man with a sinister grin. He explains that he accepted a guild request to escort a ship to the land of the sun, finding it amusing that an A-rank adventurer like her is in such a state of distress. He continues his taunts, wondering aloud why she's being targeted when he thought she had companions. He then reveals his true motive, declaring that to his clan, she is nothing more than an obstacle. A dark tendril of energy erupts from his hand as he attacks, and she desperately shouts for a shield. The magical barrier shatters almost instantly upon forming. She grits her teeth, realizing her magic is failing to activate properly. The hooded man observes calmly that a strange mist is obstructing her magical power. He smirks, questioning if she truly believes she can win in this situation. Her eyes narrow as she weighs her options, understanding that this is a desperate gamble. In a sudden move, she throws herself overboard, plunging into the churning sea. The hooded man watches in surprise as she hits the water, then scoffs at what he perceives as a foolish act. As she sinks into the dark depths, Liz vows that she will survive. From the ship's deck, her attacker muses that the currents around the land of the sun are teeming with magical beasts. Jumping in, he believes, is a death sentence. The violent waves cast her ashore on a rugged, unknown island. In the distance, a jagged mountain peak crumbles and collapses under the strain of some unseen force. Having crawled on the beach, she coughs up seawater. Pushing herself up, she glares back towards the ocean with fury, vowing that she will never forgive that man. She takes a moment to assess her condition, realizing that while her magic is usable again, her struggle in the ocean currents has consumed nearly all of her magical power. A faint aura of energy flickers around her gloved hand. She checks her belongings, relieved to find her high-capacity magic pack is safe. However, she laments the loss of the portable magic boat that was destroyed when she was attacked at sea. Unsure of her location, she resolves that her first priority must be to find someone, anyone, to understand where she is. Her thoughts are cut short as a trio of small, demonic creatures lunges at her from the undergrowth, their shrieks echoing through the trees. As they swarm around her, she realizes with dread that these are not mere animals, but magical beasts. Her magic still won't respond, and one of the creatures sinks its teeth in her arm. She grits her teeth, deciding she can't afford to waste time on such small fry. Just then, a much larger threat emerges from the forest, a blue-rank magical beast, the three-horned bear. The massive bear swats the smaller beast aside with a single, powerful swipe. Seizing the moment, Liz attempts to cast a spell, Thunder Rope, but her depleted power fizzles into nothing. In response to her failed magic, the three-horned bear lets out a deafening roar, its own body crackling with raw, untamed energy, leaving her stunned. But instead of attacking, the powerful beast turns and flees into the woods. Her confusion lasts only a moment as the true threat reveals itself. A purple-rank magical beast, the monstrous bull spider, descending from its web. Before a young woman with blonde hair, the monstrous, bull-headed Gyuki is violently torn apart, its massive form disintegrating into nothingness. Her eyes widen in shock as she turns, a memory of something she once heard surfacing in her mind. Behind her, a young man with a long ponytail lands gracefully amidst the swirling dust and debris. This encounter takes place on Kaiokuma Island, a super dangerous, hellish region within the land of the sun. It is a land of exile, swarming with all manner of demons, where only the most ruthless can survive. The woman confronts the newcomer, her voice filled with desperation. She declares that she cannot die in a place like this, that she must find someone. The young man stands opposite her, taken aback by her sudden, intense presence. He stares, his own expression of shock mirroring hers. He cannot comprehend it, questioning aloud how a human could possibly be on this island. She suddenly closes the distance, ordering him not to move. With a fierce glare, she demands an answer. "Who are you?" He remains silent, stunned by her aggressive questioning. He averts his gaze, a bead of sweat tracing a path down his temple. This was a difficult situation, he thinks to himself. He doesn't even know what words to use. As he stands lost in thought, the woman snaps at him, asking what he's spacing out for. From the shadows behind them, a new threat emerges, a massive, three-horned black bear, roaring as it lunges forward. Their tense standoff is shattered. Both turn in unison, their faces masks of alarm as they face the hulking beast. The bear lets out a deafening roar. In response, the woman thrusts her hands forward, a dark, potent energy crackling into existence between her palms as she prepares to strike. She looks on in wide-eyed shock as the ponytail warrior brings his weapon down with a deafening crash. The blow cleaves the three-horned bear clean in two, shattering the ground beneath it from sheer force. She stares at the bisected corpse of the massive, magical beast, utterly stunned that it was defeated in a single, instantaneous strike. He stands over his kill, his long ponytail whipping in the wind. He internally questions how a man from the land of the sun could possess such immense power, a strength that gives him a sense of unease. He turns to her with a bright, reassuring smile, telling her that everything is all right now. The woman is taken aback, realizing that an A-rank adventurer like herself felt a sense of dread from him, yet he seems completely oblivious. He notes to himself that it's a shame they can't communicate, misinterpreting her shock as simple words. To solve this, he presents a simple, glowing ring. He explains that it is a ring of language, which allows the wearer to understand different tongues and asks her to put on. She stares at the offered item, her expression a mixture of suspicion and confusion. With the ring equipped, she suddenly understands his words. He asks who she is and where they are. She apologizes for her previous silence and introduces herself as Gautama, explaining that this is Kayokuma Island. She repeats the name Kayokuma Island, confirming her suspicions. She then remarks that Gadu is a famous family name in the land of the sun. Toma looks down, a shadow crossing his face at the mention of his lineage. He clarifies that while the Gadu family is indeed close to the imperial household, he has no connection to them. He requests that she simply call him Toma. He then turns to her and sincerely thanks her for her help. She remains silent for a moment, her gaze fixed on him as if assessing his character. She concludes internally that, at the very least, he doesn't seem to be hostile. He continues cheerfully, suggesting that since they aren't enemies, they should drop the formalities because it's more comfortable for him. He asks if she'll let him speak to her in his usual, casual way. Her face immediately contorts into a mask of pure annoyance at his forwardness. She appeared momentarily flustered, offering a quick apology. From the foliage, Gadu Toma pressed his question, demanding to know who she was. Composing herself with a serious expression, she placed a hand on her chest and introduced herself. Her name is Liz, she explained, an A-rank adventurer from the Arst Kingdom. As the blonde warrior and another man rest by a stream, Gadu Toma looks back, a question forming on his lips. He asks aloud what an adventurer of the Arst Kingdom is. She looks up at him, her expression one of weary annoyance. She states that she was unaware he possessed a ring of language, then pointedly asks him just how long he's been on this island. He calmly holds up 7 fingers, replying that it has been about 7 years. The revelation stuns the woman, who stares with wide eyes, stammering in disbelief that he could have been on the island for so long. She elaborates, explaining that the Arst Kingdom only began trading with the land of the sun a few years ago. Because of this, she had assumed that any people from the continent currently in the country were recent arrivals. Toma listens, his own surprise growing. As he contemplates this new information, the blonde warrior suddenly winces, clutching her chest as a wave of faintness washes over her. Instantly, a young man with reddish hair appears at her side, supporting her. He observes that while she isn't injured, her magical power is in disarray, causing exhaustion. He asks Toma to wait a moment. Their conversation is cut short as a massive, 3-horned bear-like beast emerges from the shadows, looming over them. Toma instinctively raises a hand, preparing for battle. The blonde warrior, however, seems merely annoyed by the creature's appearance. She complains that the island is full of strange demons, casually identifying the beast as a 3-horned bear, a name she seems to have invented herself. Her annoyance turns to grim determination as she mutters that its gallbladder is a potent, nourishing tonic. As if summoned by her words, the master Tenrin appears, presenting a bowl filled with a dark, steaming liquid. He calls it a direct transmission from the master, a nourishing medicine, and tells her to drink it. She recoils, shouting in disgust at the very idea. Tenrin apologizes, explaining that it would be a waste since he cannot drink it himself. Toma, now holding the bowl, tells her not to force herself. Her expression softens, and she thanks him for going to the trouble for her, admitting that the stimulus is quite strong. She downs the foul concoction, her face contorting in disgust as she shudders. Toma observes that for a first-time guest, this is quite a harsh welcome, but he seems impressed that she managed to drink it. Her discomfort is quickly replaced by grim determination. Looking out towards the churning, dark waters surrounding the island, she declares that escape is impossible. He questions her certainty, asking if they can't simply sail away from the island's immediate vicinity. Liz elaborates on their predicament, explaining that Kayokuma Island is trapped within ferocious ocean currents, powerful enough to swallow even a large vessel. She then presents a potential tool, revealing a glowing, intricate compass. With this and their portable magic ship, she explains they can at least determine the direction of their homeland. His hope is immediately tempered by her next words. She dismisses the idea as impossible, stating that a small vessel stands no chance of crossing an ocean infested with powerful magical beasts. In response to her resignation, Toma steps forward, a confident smile spreading across his face. He addresses her directly by name, Liz, and makes a bold promise. He will personally see her home. She can only stare back, utterly stunned by his declaration. On the shore, the blonde warrior woman presents a small boat to her companion. She explains that this is a simple, magic-powered vessel, a beginner's magic boat, which she took from her magic bag. While it's not much, she notes, it's better than nothing since their main ship is out of commission. He expresses his concern, asking if she is truly certain about this plan. He points out that magic boats are typically for emergencies, and that this one seems far too weak to handle strong waves or wind. She counters that the sea surrounding Kayokuma Island is beset by currents so fierce that even a sturdier vessel couldn't withstand them. Furthermore, she adds, the ocean is teeming with monsters, making a simple escape by sea impossible. His worry persists, and he asks again if she is absolutely sure. As he voices his concern, she looks away, silently acknowledging to herself that the currents near the land of the sun are just as treacherous. Her patience wearing thin, she shouts in frustration and pushes the boat's controls forward. The vessel erupts with speed, throwing the warrior back in his seat. As they rocket across the water, she thinks to herself that while she was initially hesitant, she is now betting everything on his audacious nature. As their small boat becomes a mere speck on the vast, churning sea, she cries out a warning. A massive tide, a swirling vortex in the ocean, is directly in front of them. He rises calmly, telling her not to sink the boat and assuring her that he won't allow anything to happen that would cause her worry. With a confident smile, he announces his departure and steps off the side of the boat, his feet finding purchase on the surface of the water. In a stunning display of power, he kicks off the sea itself, launching into the air with a technique he calls the sky-shattering kick. A massive circular shockwave radiates across the water as his companion watches in utter disbelief. He soars through the sky, the sashes of his garments spreading out behind him like a pair of dark wings. Hovering above the violent, swirling current, he recalls that 10 years ago, he couldn't even bear to look at such a sight. But now, things are different. His eyes blaze with power as he forms a fist, declaring that the supreme heaven fist is the very essence of the divine. He focused on the core principle of the Hatenken, a martial art that imposes an end point upon all things, forcing them toward a compulsory conclusion. With eyes wide with concentration, he understood that to strike everything at once, he had to transition from a clenched fist to an open palm. In that very instant, he conceived of a new derivative form. Thrusting his hand forward, he unleashed the technique, sending a colossal shockwave of energy across the water surface. The violent, swirling vortex vanished completely, replaced by a gentle mist that fell like rain upon a now placid sea. As the mist settled, he descended, naming his new creation the Haten Show, the supreme heaven palm. He landed softly, his feet barely disturbing the calm water. From the boat below, Liz could only stare up in utter disbelief, her mouth agape as she stammered, "No way." He touched down gently inside the small vessel, the sea around them now completely tranquil, with the shoreline of a new land mass now visible in the distance. He turned to Liz and offered his sincere gratitude for all her help. He then looked at her with a bright, determined expression, proposing that they head toward her country. After a moment of shock, she gave a firm, resounding yes. Standing beside his master on a cliff overlooking the sea, Toma declares his intent to see the world for himself. With a final farewell, he steps away, beginning his journey from a small, isolated rock in a vast ocean. Far away, within a grand, shadowy hall, a hooded figure reports to a glowing, all-seeing orb. He states that a girl named Elementia threw herself into the dangerous seas of the land of the sun, and that her death is all but certain. The orb questions him, asking if she was actually killed. The hooded man flinches, taken aback by the orb's sharp inquiry. Why wasn't she killed directly? He immediately drops to his knees, offering profuse apologies. He tries to justify his actions, explaining that he cannot comprehend what threat the girl could possibly pose, especially since her death in such a perilous situation is a certainty. The orb issues a new command. He is to go to the port of Lestral and monitor it for the girl's return. Trembling, the hooded man asks when he should expect this. Left alone in the cavernous hall, he contemplates the order. He reasons that sending anyone else to the land of the sun is futile, believing that anyone who cast themselves into that sea would surely perish before reaching another shore. A cold sweat forms on his brow as a dreadful possibility occurs to him. What if, by some miracle, Elementia is still alive? As if answering his thought, the orb delivers its final, chilling decree. Next time, her death must be certain. Meanwhile, on the churning seas, the blonde warrior woman screams from her small boat as a colossal A-rank magical beast, a marine snake, erupts from the water, its jaws gaping wide to devour her. In the instant before the serpent strikes, Toma appears, leaping between the monster and the terrified woman. He shouts for her to leave it to him as his fist connects squarely with the beast's jaw, halting its attack. He stands poised on the wreckage, his attack having concluded. Liz, clinging to the debris, stares in disbelief, realizing he just defeated an A-rank marine snake with a single strike. He turns to her, questioning what her rank means. Liz, regaining her composure, quickly dismisses the question, claiming it's nothing important. Several days after their departure from Kayokama Island, they drift in a small boat, the massive carcass of the sea serpent floating behind them. Liz casually asks if he intends to eat the creature, to which he flatly replies he will not. Their journey is far from peaceful. He uses a technique, the dominion of the supreme heaven, sending a powerful wave across the water surface to deal with threats. As a massive, tentacled beast emerges from the depths, he leaps into the air, preparing to strike it down with his supreme heaven fist. He dispatches the creature with practiced ease. Liz watches him, a hand on her forehead, acknowledging that despite the constant attacks, their voyage has been remarkably smooth thanks to his protection. On the fourth day of their journey, with the port city of Lestral nearly in sight, tension arises. Liz points out that he hasn't bathed once, questioning why he doesn't use his water magic to clean himself. He defensively replies that he can't, prompting her to demand he do it immediately. He inwardly chastises himself for upsetting her again, lamenting his inability to be more considerate of her feelings. Liz lets out an exasperated sigh, insisting that she isn't truly angry with him. Changing the subject, she simply tells him to be careful. As he holds a cloth over them for shade, she asks what his plans are for acquiring a sword once they reach the city of Lestral. Her practical question triggers a sudden, panicked realization for him. In his focus on the journey, he completely forgot to think about how he would locate the person he was meant to report to. Liz notices his distress and asks what's wrong. His panic intensified as another, more immediate problem struck him like a bolt of lightning. Sweat beaded on his face as he cried out in dismay, realizing he had no money. From nearby, a confused voice asked what Quirce was. Aboard a small boat crossing the water, the blonde warrior, Liz, addresses Toma with a hint of exasperation. She tells him not to worry about money, as she will cover their lodging costs in town. She points out that she's being generous, reminding him that if it weren't for his presence, she never would have been able to escape Kyokama Island. In response, Toma offers her a map and a pouch of items as a token of his gratitude. He sincerely thanks her, admitting he owes her a great deal. Liz looks from him to the map, acknowledging that meeting him was indeed fortunate. Her expression suddenly brightens with an idea. She suggests that Toma could also become an adventurer. To do so, she explains, one simply needs to go to the Adventurers Guild in town. She elaborates that adventurers are essentially jacks of all trades for the town, taking on requests posted on the guild's notice board, which range from monster subjugation to simple errands. She continues, explaining that anyone can become an adventurer, regardless of their identity or background. By completing requests, one earns rewards, making it a profession where success is determined solely by one's own skill. Toma considers this, realizing it would be a good way to earn money and move about freely. He then asks Liz why she chose this path, questioning if she simply enjoys being an adventurer. She looks away thoughtfully, admitting that while there was a time she longed for the outside world, becoming an adventurer wasn't a particular goal of hers. Her expression hardens as she states plainly that she had no other choice. Sensing her discomfort, Toma apologizes for asking an indelicate question. Liz quickly dismisses his concern with a smile, telling him not to worry. Her attention then shifts to his sword, noting that it is very conspicuous. She warns him that people from the land of the sun stand out, prompting Toma to ask why she's trading with that nation. She explains that while she doesn't know the full details, it seems the land of the sun has a policy of restricting entry into their country, making it difficult to get in. He processes this new information, pondering the reason for such a policy. Having understood the situation, he turns to Liz with a serious look, stating that he has a request for her. She looks back, asking what it is. He looks at her intently and makes his request. He wants her to treat him simply as Toma, asking her to help him hide his family name, Gadu. Liz stares back, surprised by the plea. He reflects on his decision, realizing that by casting aside his family name, the connection to his father he once thought would vanish is now truly being severed. This resolution stems from a past he cannot escape. He knew from that fateful time that his very existence was a liability. His master's words echo in his mind, that he had a mission to preserve their techniques, and becoming a weakness was no longer an option. With the land of the sun imposing entry restrictions, he understands that a foreigner like him would already stand out. If he were to engage in trade, his identity could be exposed, and if the name Gadu were discovered, it would lead to significant trouble. He concludes that now is the time to discard it completely. As he finishes his internal deliberation, Liz watches him with a look of surprise. He notes aloud that she seems to have her own complicated circumstances as well. Her surprise melts into a bright, reassuring smile. She agrees to his unspoken plea, declaring that from this moment on, he is simply Toma. Relieved, he thanks her. Her attention quickly shifts, and she points past him, urging him to look behind them. She announces that their destination is in sight, the port city of Lestral in the Kingdom of Alls. Following her gesture, he turns to see a vast, fortified city rising from the coast as their small boat speeds toward the harbor.